good question about mediation. And in fact, in the Advocates University course, we just covered mediation a few days ago. This particular question, though, didn't come up because as a feature within mediation, I didn't cover it. So this is a good opportunity to cover that. One aspect, because it is common and it is standard. It doesn't vary school districts. It's just sort of a general approach to how mediation is done. So that's sort of how I'm looking at your question. Whether both parties at mediation are given an opening statement, whether that's a standard practice, and how long is appropriate for the opening statement to be. Okay, now once again, this is going to be standard practice. It's not going to be something that is sort of a case-by-case basis or even varying depending on school districts. I think it's also completely up to preference. You're not mandated to have an opening statement. Keep in mind that the mediator is not a decision maker. So the opening statement is more for the benefit of the mediator of trying to grasp and understand what the issues are and what the positions are before separating into your individual rooms, known as a caucus, okay? So they will typically use that opening statement as a formality across all mediations, not just special education mediations, okay? It's fairly, it's standard, all right? I think that's a good word you used. It is standard practice, all right? Now, do I use opening statements in my mediation? I do not. I provide the mediator in advance either the complaint we drafted or bullet points of the issues and our perspective prior to the mediation so that the mediator already knows what the issues are from our perspective. When I first started doing this years ago, I did use the opening statements until I sort of figured out that it wasn't beneficial. I did not find it beneficial to the end goal in trying to reach an agreement, because the opening statement is basically opening the wound up again, and your mediation is there to be an opportunity to resolve the issues. And because we're in a delicate area of special education law where there are emotions on both sides, I'm puzzled to this day why so many education professionals take disputes or special education complaints or anything a parent complains about personally. It baffles me, but they do, and it will always be that way. They shouldn't take it personal. This is part of the special education law and procedures to where you as a parent, because you are a valuable member of your child's IEP team, you have a place at the table. You have a voice. You have input. It's part of your parental rights. And so therefore, so are the dispute resolution options if you disagree with your IEP team on a substantive point, okay? And please remember, everybody, there's a big difference between arguing with your school pertaining to procedural problems that don't cause any kind of educational harm to your child. If it has not caused and contributed to regression in your child or stagnation, then guys, don't argue with the school about procedure, because that's a loser, all right? Unless you can tie their procedural violations to substantive harm, meaning that it caused educational harm to your child, and you have to have evidence to support that. Your child regressed, and you have to have that evidence to support that, and your child stagnated. That is connected to your child's substantive part of their IEP, the goals, the services, the supports, whether those were provided, they were provided correctly, appropriately. If they were insufficient, not enough were provided. That is the substance, and that speaks to the provision of faith. You can also go to mediation for identification if your child isn't eligible. If your child's placement has been changed. Any of those things entitle you as a parent, as an advocate, or a valuable member of your child's IEP team to use the mediation process. But if it's simply about, we didn't have enough people at the IEP meeting but it didn't translate over to educational harm to your child, then guys, don't go to mediation. It's reserved for stuff that you can actually point to as far as a stagnation, regression, or educational harm. All right. Now, the mediator is not a decision maker. They're there to sit there and broker an agreement. And most mediations are not, they can be in a conference format to where you're sitting across from each other. That's appropriate if you get along with the staff and you have a good rapport with them. That's the quickest way to get a mediation done. But the most common one is a caucus format where you're in two separate rooms. You might be there together at the very beginning in order for the mediator to explain the confidentiality clause, which is going to be uniform across the 50 states. There's a very good, valid reason for confidentiality in mediation. It encourages both parties to be able to speak freely, offer freely, reject freely, without having whatever is discussed in that mediation and maybe accepted or rejected, brought up against them later, let's say in a due process hearing. You want to be able to have an environment to where you can negotiate freely without having any of that stuff used against you later. Okay, so that's the purpose of the confidentiality, which I agree with, absolutely. It's a give and take. So, you're not going to get 100% with whatever you go in with. You have to be mentally flexible to sit there and think, can what they're proposing meet the needs that I'm looking for? And that means you need to be a little mentally creative. Can I use this? It's not exactly what I was looking for, but can I use this and maybe through another IEP meeting or two, make it into what it is that I intended. Okay, because a good mediation, frankly, a good successful mediation is one where both parties weren't particularly happy with the outcome. That's a good mediation. The whole point when we go into mediation for parents is that we're looking for the max benefit. We're looking to achieve as much as possible, but then I'm also very mentally flexible to where can I make this work? Can I make this work to where maybe with another IEP meeting, I can get that additional 20% we were looking for just through subtle changes or data collection. And you have to understand that mediation is a corrective action. All right. It's where also you negotiate remedial or compensatory services. Money damages are not available under IDEA. And so therefore keep it within those confines. But also you're flexible in what you can request, but don't be surprised if the school comes back and rejects some of those things. Just don't get offended by it. And also, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Well, you know what? In a future video, I think I'm going to explain sort of these dispute resolution options in more detail in order to give parents sort of an idea on what to ask for in mediation or in a facilitated IEP meeting or during due process. Because I think that that's a hang up for a lot of parents. Well, that's fine. I mean, I get this process, but what can we ask for? What different combinations would be good in order to repair or correct whatever defect exists in your child's IEP? And maybe that's exactly what I'll do. That is what I'll do. We'll go over our videos discussing each of the dispute resolution options and what a parent could reasonably ask for depending on the nature of their child's disability. Good question. I don't recommend an opening statement. I recommend providing that information to the mediator in advance and then sending a copy to the school system. Whatever you provide to the mediator, provide to the school. And then that alleviates the pressure of having to come up with an opening statement. It puts you on the spot. Also, it just provides a venue for these people to make faces and be irritated. And that's not what you want. You want a nice, conducive setting to where you can resolve the issues. So pop them with the slap in the face over here, and then have the mediation as an opportunity to resolve.